Your health, this is just a reality, doesn't take a break just because the calendar flips to sunnier days and changes seasons. And the version of you that gets to September and gets to look back and be like, I had a great summer, and I'm also really excited to go into the fall. And I'd even argue is the version of you that is going to step into an even greater version of yourself. And by greater, I don't just mean a fitter, leaner version. I mean the version that has an even better relationship with food, a version that has even more energy, a version that has even more confidence, is the person who starts right now by committing to maintaining and committing to the process that is going to allow you to maintain while still having your fun.
Let's link up with Krista on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What's going on, FYX listeners? Welcome back to our latest episode of the FYX podcast. I'm your host, Krista Huber. Welcome to episode 201. Just like I shared last week, if you didn't catch the milestone episode that is episode 200, we just got to keep moving right on, right? It's another week. We've got more to say. We've got perspectives to shift, whether it's yours or maybe even whether it's mine. And as I sat down to get ready and prep for this conversation, I started thinking to myself, all right, it's May 1st, the day that this episode airs. We all know that we're in that race. I see it on social media this time of year, every single year, to countdown to Memorial Day is on, the official start to summer. And as I started thinking about what I wanted to record, there was a part of me that was like, should I do this topic? Because I feel like I tend to talk about this at least once a year. But then there was another part of me that remembered, well, first of all, you've potentially have new audience members who didn't hear that past episode, but maybe even more importantly, I've grown as a coach, not only in the last 12 months, but the 24 months, including the year prior to that, 36 months before that, if I had done an episode that touched on this idea around Memorial Day. And it is entirely possible for my perspective to shift, because a good coach is a coach who's willing to sometimes contradict herself, is willing to change her mind, because the coolest part about coaching that actually allows us to evolve as not only human beings, but as practitioners, and what I really feel embodies being a true coach, is taking all of the collective experiences of our clients, not just our own. And I see this as an issue a lot in the fitness industry, where it starts off as somebody having lost a ton of weight, then wants to go and become a coach without the formal education attached to it. I am so happy for somebody out there who has figured out what worked for them and wants to share that with other people. But this is what I think separates somebody who's had this life-changing experience and maybe has the goodness in their heart to help somebody, versus the person who is a true practitioner. And that's somebody who is constantly looking at what else is going on, taking in information, whether it is actual data and science and research, but more importantly, the anecdotal. Because if there's one thing about the Fitness FYX that I pride myself on, and I know Alyssa holds herself to the same exact standard, is that the Fitness FYX is where practicality comes into play. We are committed to pulling all of our clients up to where they need to be, but at the same time, meeting you where you are. And in meeting you where you are, we are constantly taking in feedback, listening to where we see our clients getting stuck and what is tripping them up. So how does this all play back into this concept of May 1st and why this timeline is significant? Well, it's because I feel like every year, right around May 1st, when we get into that sweet spot where we're just a couple weeks away from Memorial Day, everyone falls into one of two camps. There's the person out there, and you are probably one of these two people. And I'm going to bet which one you are. So there's person A, let's call them. That is the person who sees that the clock has struck and the calendar is striking May 1st. And they're like, shit, I got to double down and be super restrictive and try to just do whatever I can in the next 3.5 weeks, because I know I'm going to be by the pool, at the beach, wherever it is, but I know summer is literally around the corner. Then there's person B. And if I had to bet money, I would venture to guess that there are actually more of you out there in the FYX audience that might be person B. And I'm going to explain why. But person B is the person who's like, well, it's May 1st. I expect it to be at a different point by now, based on goals I set in January, or maybe even last summer, or maybe even in September, and I'm not there. And because I have a lot going on, I'm going to table said goals until the fall. The reason why I'm willing to bet money that more of you out there may fall into that category, if you are somebody who has not been working with us for the past few months, and you're somebody who's told yourself, like, I've got the information at my fingertips, I'm really going to try to go at this on my own, I'm committed to this journey, and then reality strikes and life gets in the way, because I know that the person who really resonates with what we talk about on this show and is therefore similar to the conversations that we're also having with our clients, I know you're a busy person. And I know because you're a busy person, you've got this whole story for yourself that, like we talked about in episode 197, you have this story. It's easy for you to justify that this thing came up at work, this project you had to get done. Something was going on in your children's lives. You had to manage something else in your household. You've had travel, whether it's for work or for pleasure. You could think of all the reasons why it didn't necessarily happen for you this year. And like I talked about in 197, not saying that any of those things are not valid, but I did ask this question, and this question is relevant to today's take on all this, is we can all mutually agree that you still have to eat, right? So for you to say, oh, I'm just really busy, I need to table whatever fitness goals I have or whatever health goals I have, I'll deal with it later. How many more times are you going to be saying that? And if that's the narrative you need to hear, go back and listen to 197. So if you're like, oh shit, she knows me, and you didn't listen to episode 197 and you feel called out, you're like, oh, that's me, like reluctantly raising your hand, hearing that, go listen to episode 197, do yourself a favor. But there's kind of like a dotted line into another version of that busy person. And this has been something that I have seen come up with multiple clients in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And because I know it's come up with clients, I also know that it's scattered throughout Instagram conversations that we have. It's something that I hear, friends talk about, or like even overhear people talking about when I'm walking down the street, because yes, I'm always have my ears peeled for kind of what perspectives people are sharing and like what's making them feel troubled about their fitness and nutrition. And that is this idea of needing to take a break. I have had several people come to me in the last few weeks and share that they needed to take a break from tracking their food. Or I've had the conversation with somebody that we don't directly support inside of the Fitness Fix, and they say, I've been going at this and like I've maybe made progress, or if they've only made a little bit, but I just feel like I need to take a break with summer coming. I'm not going to sugarcoat this question, because I feel it's the only question that is appropriate to really challenge you to bring you up to where you need to be. Because remember, what did I mention that the Fitness Fix prides itself on? Meeting you where you are. But the second half of that statement is pulling you up to where you need to be. So when someone comes to me and says to me, hey, I need to take a break from tracking, my real question is, hey, just for clarity, do you need to take a break from your health? And it's much like that question that we posed in episode 197. When you say that you're just too busy, but we agree that you need to eat, are you really saying that you're too busy for your health? Let that sound extreme. Let that sound like I don't have as much compassion. But here's where I do actually feel it's the most compassionate question I can pose to you today as you listen to this podcast episode on May 1st, 2025, or after May 1st, if you're listening a few days later. It's because the person out there who is constantly finding themselves in that trap of being busy or needing a break or feeling like it's just too much or feeling that level of overwhelm, you have gotten yourself there over weeks, or I should even back up, days, weeks, that turned into months, that then turned into years. And maybe those years kind of crept up on you, right? Maybe it was like 2 to 3 months of putting all your effort in, then a full pause, 2 to 3 months of putting all your effort in, then taking that break. Where did that get you? The person who is so consistently saying, hey, I just need a break from tracking, from some aspect of meal prepping, going to the gym, you're feeling some sort of level of burnout. I can promise that the reason why you may be feeling that way is because you had higher expectations for the progress you hoped to make based on the effort that you were putting in. So that's what I want to unpack over the course of the next few minutes here, because there's a difference between wanting a break from accountability versus wanting a break from effort. And I'm going to say that one more time. There's a difference from wanting a break around accountability and wanting a break from effort. And here's where my compassion can 100% come back in. I understand that life gets busy. I also understand that there's certain days where your work schedule gets the best of you, and the ground beef that you intended to prep, although it may take 5 minutes, it doesn't nearly sound as appealing as that one restaurant that you love around the corner from your office on your way home, or down the street from your house that you can just run into and pick up your favorite comfort meal that helps you decompress from the day. I have been that person so many times. I still can be that person some weeks. But it's a slippery slope, because that's where you start to tell yourself this story that you've been so committed to the tracking process. And yet, if we really peeled back some of the layers there, like we do for our clients inside the Fitness Fix, the whole reason why we have our clients track, and not only do we have our clients track on a daily basis, we also have our clients then review their own progress on a weekly basis and take a step back and zoom out and be able to ask themselves, was I actually giving my full effort over the course of the last 7 days or 14? And I find it very interesting, and this is where the anecdotal evidence comes in, that the person who is usually the quickest to getting to that feeling of wanting to take a break is always the person who hasn't made as much progress as they would have hoped to make. And I don't think that should come as a surprise, because that's where it's this whole friction between accountability versus this break from effort, because that person feels that they've been putting in so much effort and they're not necessarily seeing the result. And I will die on this hill that I understand that it's frustrating that what we ask our clients to do inside of the Fitness Fix is play the long game. But there's a reason why we ask you to play the long game. And that's because we want you to get off of this dieting hamster wheel that's left you in this position on May 1st every single year. This position where you start kicking the can down the road and tell yourself that you're going to worry about it in September. And it's easy to get stuck in this because, again, whether it's because you're this busy person who has a lot going on in your life, you're managing a whole lot, you're the woman out there who does all of the things and just can't seem to find that sweet spot and set those boundaries for herself. It also then rubs up against the barbecues, the travel, whether that's going away for a whole week or whether it's just like every other weekend, it seems like there's plans. And now all of a sudden you can spin this really logical story of like, yeah, this just doesn't feel like the right time for me to do this. But that creates this really bad story that is almost like you're trying to imply, whether you realize it or you don't, that enjoyment in tracking your food or tracking your progress, or even the process, going to the gym, meal prepping, some aspect of the process that you're saying you need to break from, is mutually exclusive from having fun. And I will die on the hill that we are also committed inside of the Fitness Fix to teaching you that that is not true. Tracking your food does not have to be mutually exclusive from enjoyment. And I have every last example between all the tips and tricks that we share in our daily email newsletter that goes out talking about how to actually manage your weekends and how to approach anticipating going out to eat, to how we work with our clients to navigate travel, to the fact that we do actually schedule diet breaks for our clients inside of our program. But for somebody to come to me and be like, I just need a break, my next question always is, let's talk about what specifically we need a break from. And how to really answer that question is like to talk me through, or let's say you are not working with us, doing this exercise on your own. If you've caught yourself in this spot, what is it that's weighing on you the most? Is it the fact that you feel like you should have been seeing better results? Or is it maybe not as deep as that? And it's as simple as maybe the way you've been meal prepping for the past couple of months has been really complicated or has left you in the kitchen for like 4 hours every Sunday. And now you're starting to resent the shit out of that. Because guess what? I would resent the shit out of that too, which is why we don't teach our clients to meal prep that way. And hint, hint, wink, wink, if you're still not bulk and ingredient prepping and batch prepping your food, where you're making 3 to 5 types of proteins and 3 to 5 types of carbs, and then throwing 3 to 5 types of fat in the mix, because you don't really have to make those things. Think avocados, olive oil, nut butters, nuts, etc. Then I promise you're doing it wrong. And we do have a guide for that. So hit me up and I will send it your way. But there's solutions to whatever it is that's making you feel burnt out. And because I am so sure of the fact that most of the people that we work with are fitting this set of characteristics around juggling a lot on your plate, feeling like you're being pulled in a million directions, I want to challenge you to hold you to the standard that I know you are capable of. And why do I know? Because I see you do it in every other area of your life. I see the way you're committed to showing up at work. I see the way you're committed to being in your relationship and being the best partner you can be. I see the way you're committed to being the best parent. So a good coach and a really inquisitive coach and a coach that is committed to you moving through that identity shift that we referenced at the end of episode 200 is the coach who's going to say, hey, let's like push up against this a little bit and let's dig a little bit deeper right here. Is it the actual process of tracking that you're burnt out from? Or is it that you're trying to fit the tracking component into your life in a way that just doesn't seem that feasible for you? To give examples of some solutions of how you might work through that, let's say for the past few months, you've been diligently tracking all of your calories, looking at your protein, your carbs, and your fat. What might it look like for you for the summer to just move into tracking only your protein? Or what might it look like for you if you decide that you are only going to track your food on the days that you know you're going out to eat? So let's say that's like Friday through Sunday for the summer, or maybe even one day in the middle of the week, and then Saturday, Sunday through the summer, or Friday, Saturday through the summer. And why I offer that as a solution is because we all know that when we go out to eat, and if you don't know, now you do, your meal will be maybe moderate in protein, but high in carbohydrates and high in fat. So if you can anticipate that, and I've just given you the answer to anticipate it, then the rest of your day just needs to look like the reverse. Mostly protein, lean protein preferably. And then your carbohydrates are going to look like a lot of vegetables. So you can get a lot of bang for your buck, as I like to say. Because if you think about green leafy vegetables, fruits, like especially berries versus, let's say, bananas, you are able to still have a lot of volume on your plate and feel really satisfied and full and walk into that dinner in a situation where if you want to say yes to the burger and have the bun and the fries, you can do it. And if you intentionally track on the days that you know you're going out to eat, you get to change the relationship to the process. All this to say, the right approach, I don't care around the nuances of like what you're doing, whether you choose to like modify certain things with how you track, but the point is that the right approach is about creating an approach that actually has flexibility baked into it. So for me as a coach, especially inside of the Fitness Fix and the way that we coach and the principles and protocols that we hold as like our top priority for all of our clients, when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I am feeling like I need a break from tracking, my inclination is to like dig into this and say, okay, how can we make sure that we're on the same page between coach and client about why you feel like you need a break? Because it's on me as a coach if you don't actually feel like you were able to come looking for a modification, like you were able to come and have the chance to have the conversation so that we could work backwards and figure out like what's really ailing you the most, and then help you build a plan so that we're just adjusting the process. So I honestly feel like for me, like I take that on a personal level of like, oh shit, did I potentially paint a picture for this person to where they feel that there's only one way to get there and there's only one method to get there. And that method looks like being totally in on tracking your food or being totally out on tracking your food. So it's this like perfect storm of feeling like there's a lack of flexibility. I almost said lacks. I was trying to put lack and flexibility together. Feeling like you've maybe failed yourself because the approach you've been taking hasn't necessarily resulted in the progress that you wanted as quickly as you expected it to. But it could also even be past patterns. Think about it. For anybody out there, women especially, but the guys are not unaffected by this either. If you have been on some pursuit in the last 10, 12, 15 years, even in the last 5 of trying to lose weight, at some point in your journey, you have taken a restrictive approach. You've taken that all or nothing mindset into consideration, and it's become a part of your foundation of how you think about your ability to lose body fat and build muscle and have more energy and grow your confidence. And there's a piece of you that's saying to yourself, yeah, well, 2 years ago when I tried this approach where I basically only ate vegetables and protein for 30 days and then I lost 10 pounds and that really worked for me. And I just want to get back to how I felt then. I want to get back to how I looked then. There's a part of you that will have a hard time letting go of those types of things because there's a little teeny voice in your head that's like, well, that worked. And again, that's where I push as a coach and I say that worked until it didn't. Because if it actually worked, you wouldn't be sitting here right now, nodding your head, listening to this podcast, being like, how is she inside my head? You wouldn't be potentially one of our clients in our DMs feeling like you need this break or are struggling. And what's even worse about why I just truthfully feel this thought process of taking a break, and for those listening to the audio, I'm putting that in quotes, heading into the summer, you're like walking into one of the toughest times of year because there is, just for lack of a better way of saying it, like a social pressure cooker. There's more events, there's more celebrations. A lot of those celebrations lend themselves to alcohol in particular. Then you reduce your inhibition. And when that inhibition is down and the cravings come up and you're getting home and all you're really feeling like is pizza or whatever, it's a lot harder to say no. So my priority and our goal inside of the FYX is to shift this perspective to get you to a place where you actually see that not only are tracking and enjoyment meant to go hand in hand, but the beauty of tracking is to give you the enjoyment that you desire. And that really comes down to actually working backwards. And that's why some of the other approaches that we take inside of our program include, hey, if you're going out to dinner, let's track the meal that you would like to have first and estimate it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we can use our judgment and our knowledge to know that if you're going out to eat and you're ordering a burger and you estimate that it's 400 calories, you and I both know it's maybe 400 calories if you cooked it at home. If you estimate that it's more like 800 to 900 from that restaurant, you're sitting in a pretty decent estimation so that you can then just judge the rest of your day around that. But nowhere in that scenario did I just say that you can't have the things you want to have. And now all of a sudden, when you start to change this narrative and change this relationship to how you feel about tracking, now enjoyment gets to do a little handshake with the tracking process, because it's essentially just keeping some of these guardrails in place. But it's not keeping guardrails in place from this energy of like, oh, you need to punish yourself. You need to be restrictive. That's that old version of you talking. That's that old story talking. It's keeping these guardrails in place to remind you that the thing you want the most, there does need to be a little bit of sacrifice around it, right? But if you start with the thing you want the most and then just simply ask yourself, okay, what am I willing to compromise on? What I like to call the calculated sacrifice, because there's intention behind the sacrifice. And then intention is for you to get the instant gratification of the meal you really want to have. It's not the intention of like, oh, well, like I'll just be happy when I get to this result that, again, you're kicking the can down the road. And then you start to really grow into this version of you who's like, I don't know why I didn't track my food sooner, because I now have this lens where I'm pretty much just saying like, hey, Tracking my food actually affords me to live my best life. Tracking my food is what affords me to figure out how to comfortably say yes to the drinks and not wanting to use the word balance, but it's the one that's coming out, balance that with the results that I want. It's living the life I want to live, but feeling how I want to feel as well. So as I continue to dive into this a little bit further, I got a few notes for you guys because I wanted to make sure I hit on these different perspectives and like really help you play out what the cost is of heading into the Memorial Day, May timeline of, like, where am I sitting with my goals here? And with this whole idea of like kicking the can down the road till September, I want you to think about it like a tax. That if you are sitting here thinking to yourself, it's not worth it, I'll just deal with this in September, you're literally paying a tax. And the reason why I'm using the word tax is because nobody likes to pay their taxes, right? We got to pay them, but it's a cost rather than like something that you're like gladly paying into. And that is a consequence of the choice you made. That doesn't have to be so all or nothing, because again, like I said, the cost of taking the summer off could literally turn into you potentially gaining 5 to 10 extra pounds that, because you're so convinced it doesn't make sense for you to dive into this goal further, or you just really kind of want to like take your foot off the gas with tracking your food, but instead of just like slowing the pace, you're like, oh, I'm hitting the brake. You're opening yourself up to a situation where you are literally walking away from opportunities to be self-aware, because that's what tracking is. Like, that's how we paint it inside the Fitness Fix. Tracking is simply a tool to help build your self-awareness and simultaneously educate you about food, specifically how food fits together. So for anyone out there who's had this phrase come out of their mouth, whether maybe it's not even taking a break from tracking, but like taking some sort of break from the dieting approach that you've been on, I really want to challenge you to recognize that what is that costing you when you can modify the approach and lean into the flexibility of that approach and put yourself in a position where you're just maintaining for the summer. So many people tend to gain weight in the summer that it is a win to simply maintain. More importantly, because February through like May, like I would even say like early June, because I know, yes, May 23rd, like to 25th kind of rolls in. Yes, we have Memorial Day right around that time. And people are like, oh yeah, we're going to the beach. But if you're in a phase of life where you also have children and then you think about their schedules, I really also kind of say to a lot of our clients, like, we technically have like another 4 weeks by the time kids are out of school. So there's really like 4 more weeks that if you're in the thick of a calorie deficit, you could push it and actually lean on that gas a little bit harder and not feel like you're saying no to a ton of things. But I understand that if you're in the thick of a calorie deficit, you may be kind of feeling like, oh, I just really need to like take a step back from this. But if we continue along this analogy of thinking about a car, right? If you're telling yourself that it's time for you to take a step back, and if you were driving in the car, the only time you need to slam on the brakes is when somebody stops super short in front of you, right? Otherwise, for the most part, you're really like maybe like tapping your big toe on the brakes a little bit here and there. And ideally, you're not riding so close to the car in front of you that if they stop short, you need to stop on them really hard. And I would argue, if you're the person who's been going hard on your deficit and you're getting to that place of like, there's a little fatigue here, I'm not physically feeling that good, I'm happy with my results, but I'm starting to feel a little drained and slowed down, a little sluggish, and like the hunger cues are really picking up, we always encourage our clients to slowly come out of that deficit, meaning we're not slamming on the brakes. We're just starting to push on them a little bit harder because we've created enough space. We've created enough space between the car in front of you being like just how low we went in your deficit to where we're not even putting you in a position that you're getting that hungry, that we can start to walk our way back up and do it with confidence that you walking your calories back up isn't going to turn into, oh, all of a sudden I'm going to gain 10 pounds. But you know what is going to do that? You just completely saying, YOLO, I'm done tracking. And then I go back to this question of like, why did we develop that talk track around tracking? Did I not do my job as a coach to show you that tracking is like a lever and it's this dial that we can turn up and we can turn down, again, that whole flexibility. So what that really leads me into is asking you to think about yourself like the following. Rather than calling yourself like a true breaker, like a break taker from your diet, start calling yourself a modifier. That's the real solution here. Start identifying as the person who modifies, because as you continue to identify as this person who's like, I'm only tracking when I'm in pursuit of a goal, it's going to become difficult for you to develop this relationship to tracking where it's like, sometimes I track my protein, sometimes I track 5 days a week, other times I track 7 days, sometimes I track 4, but the underlying goal of all of that being like, I don't necessarily need to track because I trust myself because I've learned so much about food through past months and years of tracking that I can just adjust the plan based on how I'm feeling and then based on the season of life that I'm in. And once again, just kind of lifting the curtain up of what we do inside of the Fitness Fix with most of our clients entering calorie deficits between the February, March through that early June timeframe. This is also the time of year where we're starting to have these conversations of how do we actually come out of it. And we purposely focus on not dieting through the summer because it doesn't warrant the right environment for it. There is, like I said, that social pressure cooker. There's more temptation. There's more ability for you to want to take that break and to feel frustrated. And really, it's you not even taking a break. It's that you fell off, but you've convinced yourself in your head that you were in a deficit. So now you're like, oh, I need a break from the deficit itself. Girl, you gave yourself the break. You're just not willing to actually label yourself as having given yourself the break. And we know you gave yourself the break, whether you can come to the table and say, hey, I just didn't track everything. I had these number of drinks. I had this thing, the other thing. That's not to make you feel guilty. It's not to make you feel like you did something wrong. It's simply to call a spade and help you build that self-awareness so that going forward, you can start to recognize the same pattern that I'm presenting right now, that it doesn't make sense to be completely turned all the way up with that dial, or again, to keep with my analogy of the car, to have your foot like super hard on the gas, like you're just going straight up to 100 miles an hour, when we've got these other speed bumps in the way, like the travel, like the weddings, like the events, like the patio season, like rooftop season, and all of those little temptation markers that, let's not even look at them as tempting when you're actually developing an approach that allows you to fit all of that in. So our most successful clients are ones who actually continue with us through this process of, okay, deficit season between that February-ish timeframe into early June. Then June through September, we focus on maintaining. We focus on tweaking our approach, as in not tracking every single day, not tracking 100% of the day, only tracking protein, scheduling full weeks where you do not track your food. But then let's say that's when you're on a vacation, but then coming back and saying, hey, let me audit myself. How did I feel while I was on that trip? Did I feel like I didn't have as much control as I would have liked to? Do I feel kind of meh right now? And if you're feeling kind of meh and blah, well, that's your sign to actually say, hey, I love my routine. I'm going to jump back into tracking. Not to punish, but again, to just remind yourself of like what actions actually make you feel really good. So at the end of the day, I would argue that one of the biggest predictors of a successful client who is successful in the sense of no longer riding that dieting hamster wheel for forever and feeling like the Fitness Fix is her forever solution, she has signed up for the ride of continuing into the fall and saying, okay, let me come out of this deficit, because on the front of our program, she's learned how to categorize her foods by protein, carbs, and fat, understand just how many calories her body actually needs, operating from this place of abundance, not from this place of restriction, then moves into the place where we get a little more focused. We like to call our calorie deficit phase the focus phase. It's not about restricting. It's just about being a little bit more calculated. But on the other side of that focus phase is our freedom phase, the phase where you actually get to look like what it means to trust yourself to go to that barbecue and know that there's no guilt if you say yes to the burger with the bun, and maybe even you go crazy and you have a hot dog too. That takes just as much practice as the dieting phase itself. And I think that's something that we as coaches should be talking about more, that maintaining is the harder part. Anybody can diet. Anybody can teach you how to diet. It's one of the reasons why we called our last 6-week challenge the Forever Formula. And we marketed it in this way to say like, hey, we're focused on teaching you how to maintain results because you've lost weight before. And if you really want to, you could go back to one of those approaches to lose weight, but we know the problem is what happens on the other side. So let's set you up for success from the jump. Success being that we're not going to keep losing and regaining these same 15 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and maybe eventually even let that pile up to even more. So let's say you're like, okay, well, I've been doing this on my own, or I'm not necessarily working with a coach right this minute. How can you potentially create structure in your life over the course of the next few months to hold yourself accountable? One of the great things you can do is social accountability. Find the friend in your friend group who has been on this journey. I guarantee if you've been on a health journey over the last several months or years, you got at least one friend in your corner who you've talked to about that with. Ask them to help you stay accountable. Maybe you're not in a position to be working with a coach, but if you're somebody who's telling yourself that you don't think you need to work with a coach because you feel like you need that break or you figured it out, I just want you to have that little litmus test for yourself. What do you need a break from? Do you need a break because you've told yourself this story around the process that it only has to be done a certain way? Do you need a break because you've burnt yourself out on so many other aspects of your life that you now think the easiest thing to let go of is something that you literally have to do every single day of the week, no matter what, because you still got to eat? And ideally, you're in a place in your life where you want to move your body and you want to exercise. So that's why I'm not even really bringing this into the equation. Your health, this is just a reality, doesn't take a break just because the calendar flips to sunnier days and changes seasons. And the version of you that gets to September and gets to look back and be like, I had a great summer and I'm also really excited to go into the fall. And I'd even argue is the version of you that is going to step into an even greater version of yourself. And by greater, I don't just mean a fitter, leaner version. I mean the version that has an even better relationship with food, a version that has even more energy, a version that has even more confidence, is the person who starts right now by committing to maintaining and committing to the process that is going to allow you to maintain while still having your fun. And then rolls into thinking about how to handle September, not by being 2 steps back, as in you're looking back over the summer and be like, man, I made so many choices that are now making me feel kind of because we don't want that for you. And we know you don't want that for yourself either, because if you didn't have high standards for yourself in other areas of your life, that would show. You wouldn't be the version of you that crushes it at your job. You wouldn't be the version of you that is such a great mom, sister, cousin, friend. You just owe it to yourself. And like I always like to say, need to give yourself that little bit of permission. I will give you that little bit of permission to prioritize you, to make the time for you, and to come up with a strategy on how you prioritizing you feels really good. And there's gonna be those days where the process itself, like I talked about last week, trusting the process feels like really, really frustrating advice sometimes. But when we start looking towards the future and getting really latched onto this idea that moving through the process itself is going to allow this like new level of you, this new identity that you haven't even touched yet, you don't even know exists yet, but you know you want. When you know that that is what's waiting for you on the other side, not how much you weigh, but just how you feel and how proud you are of yourself because you made your commitments to you, that's the best feeling in the world. So let's go get it together. If this episode resonates with you, whether you're a current client of the Fitness Fix or whether you're somebody I've never talked to before, whether we've had conversations on social media, whether you're on our email list, send me a DM and let me know if there's a part of you that resonated with this and you're like, but I need to figure out what that plan is going forward because I feel that like, oh, I just need a break. We are here to help you. I want to change your mind on this with maybe only 2 more minutes of a conversation with me because I want to understand how it's personal to you. So when I say send me a DM at the Krista Huber, please know that I genuinely mean it. And of course, our clients who are listening to this, you know where to find me over on Everfit. You know where to find Coach Alyssa. You know to bring this to our group coaching calls. But this is where the real juice happens as a coach. And these are the types of conversations I love. So with that, from wherever you're listening from, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. and I will see you guys next week.